Hi, it's Amy from Select Travel Holidays, home of Cruise Select. I hope you're enjoying our first ever virtual cruise festival, and thank you for joining our luxury barge cruising presentation with European Waterways. During this presentation, you'll learn about an entirely different type of cruising than the river and ocean ships, but a style of cruising that nonetheless enables you to travel in style and comfort and get under the skin of different destinations with curated excursions that European Waterways like to call insider experiences. Emma from European Waterways will explain what life is like on board a hotel barge, where they travel to and along waterways which other ships simply couldn't, and what measures they've introduced for the COVID world, which I know is obviously something we all now have to keep bearing in mind, something we always have to take into consideration for any holiday plans we may wish to be making. And then there'll be a Q&A session where Julia and Emma from European Waterways will answer some questions for us. I hope that you will enjoy the presentation and find something inspiring and informative, which I certainly did myself.
Welcome to European Waterways Luxury Hotel Barge Cruising presentation. In the next half hour, we're going to talk about life on board a hotel barge, where it all started and some history there along the way, and also where we cruise, and more importantly, what life will be like post-COVID travel, looking into the future, into next year travel and into 2022. So we'll start with a little bit about our history, European Waterways, where it all began. We've been operating for over 40 years. We specialise in creating a really unique, all-inclusive cruise experience on board our luxury hotel barges. We cruise the scenic inland waterways and the canals through France, Italy, Belgium and Holland, Germany, England, Scotland and Ireland. We'll have a look a bit further through the presentation in more detail as to which barges cruise in those particular regions. Overall, we've got 17 hotel barges in our fleet, all with their own unique style, history and individual ambience on board. We're privately owned by 2 directors, supported by an experienced team of 9 here based in the UK, just outside of London in Windsor in Berkshire, and we have an operations base in Burgundy in France. Here you can see a bird's eye view of our operational hub in Burgundy. You can just see there moored outside of the building, you've got the barges. During the winter months, this is really a busy sort of hub. This is where the refurbishment works take place. Any sort of interior, exterior works to be done, they get completed here at our base. So what's a hotel barge? We get asked this question a lot. If you're unfamiliar with the word barge and hotel barging, it can kind of throw you off a little in terms of the size. We do get compared to something like those sort of narrow boats you see cruising through the UK and the canals. And in fact, we're much, much larger than the sort of average narrow boat size. Most hotel barges, in fact, have been cargo vessels in the past. They've been carrying produce such as wood, coal and grain, for example, over the many, many years. Some of them dating back as far as the 1930s and 40s, so they can be quite old. What we've done is converted them to offer luxury boutique accommodation on each of those. So we offer guests full immersion into the history, the culture, the gastronomy of the region as well, and we'll have a look at that as we go through in more detail. Really creating that intimate atmosphere and high level of personal service on board. So hotel barge cruise gives you 6 nights on board, enjoying a blended balance of daily excursions, those magnificent sights, and of course cruising as well. So who enjoys hotel barging? Our type of clients really are those sort of experienced cruisers, sophisticated travelers looking for something different. Looking for an experiential tour where the destination is as important as the cruise itself. So that cruise between those points A and B and back are really, really important, and the places that they visit along the way are part of that journey. Foodies who really enjoy French, Italian, European cuisine and those fine wines. And then, of course, we've got our friends and families. They charter for a special occasion or themed cruise, and they have the barge for the full use for themselves. Similar to really an all-inclusive private villa floating, but of course they've got the guided, tailored excursions and personal crew as well looking after them. So again, one of the more popular questions we get asked, what's the difference between a hotel barge and a river cruise? A lot of the time we get sort of put in the same category, if you like, as a river cruise. And in fact, if you can see here on the image, we are much, much smaller. We are very different in terms of passenger numbers. So we hold between 6 and 20 passengers on board. 20 is our maximum amount. Crew is between sort of 4 and 8, so real high level of personal service. The canals that we cruise on are those inland waterways and canals, much less prone to any water restrictions or flooding. Water levels can be controlled much easier because we use the locks for access. We travel at a smaller pace, around 3 miles per hour, and it's usually around 100 miles in a week, so much shorter distances. And we cruise, one of the more important points is we cruise during the day. We don't cruise at night. We are in fact moored up during the evenings. Gives the clients time to hop off after dinner, stroll to the next sort of nearest village or town, or just really enjoy the scenery in the cruise area where they're stayed for that evening. So what's included? We are fully inclusive, 6 nights, as I mentioned, Sunday to Saturday. The accommodation is air-conditioned, fully air-conditioned ensuite staterooms or suites, high-quality linens and towels, bathrobes and toiletries, all the transfers by our own crew. Daily excursions are all included by chauffeured minibus, which is one of our own, and inclusive of all entry fees as well. They have the services of an experienced crew, and I'll talk about those in a moment, but you've got a captain, chef, housekeeper, deckhand and a tour guide on board. Breakfast, lunch and dinner is included. Meals are a gastronomic affair, a real culinary adventure prepared by a private chef on board using locally sourced ingredients. Usually a meal ashore once a week, usually on a Wednesday. They are taken to a local restaurant or local auberge where they get to sample the real local finery and ingredients and flavours from the region that they're in. All the drinks are included. Once they step on board, they have you have experienced sort of a bar full of international wines and spirits, fine and regional. It's an open bar policy from the moment you step on board. Teas, coffees, alcoholic and non-alcoholic drinks are all included. There's no sort of set amount. Through lunch and dinner, there is wine served as well. Use of the barge facilities, such as Wi-Fi. There's bicycles on board for all our guests to use. We can, on request, get the e-bike, electric bikes, if needed, and upgrade of bicycles as well, if needed. And I'll talk a bit about that in a moment, the extras that we can include. Most barges have a library, games, and most also have an on-deck spa pool. So the only thing additional to think about would be tipping. Tipping is discretionary. The average sort of tipping policy is between 5 and 7% of the total amount. And that's usually paid at the end of the cruise. There's an envelope left in the cabin and the captain will distribute evenly amongst the crew on board. So just to highlight some of our key sort of features across the fleet. So I mentioned that we have 17 hotel barges. Each are very unique. You'll see that as we go through. We've introduced a barge category rating just to make it a little bit easier. So we'll start off with an ultra deluxe example. The image here on the left is our barge, Hotel Barge Renaissance, and this is our flagship barge, comparable to a luxury hotel room. Very spacious cabin and suites, and this ultra deluxe will be on the higher end of the price bracket that you're looking at. The deluxe will be slightly smaller cabins in terms of the inside interior. The open sort of public spaces would be quite similar to an ultra deluxe on a deluxe. And then you've got first class, which are smaller, slightly cozier, compact cabins with those more traditional features. So again, there is something for everyone, from ultra deluxe, very modern, down to sort of first class, which would be your lower pricing bracket to sort of lead in pricing there. So I'm going to just show you a couple of examples of interiors of these barges. They look so different inside, and it's worthwhile if you can get your hands on a brochure or have a look on the website or contact your local travel agents just to get an idea of what the barges look inside. They are very different. You could get a hotel barge, for example, here. You're looking at sort of French decor, ultra modern. You've got the real old traditional features as well. So there is something for everyone. Real spacious salons, sun decks, public areas and bar areas as well, where guests can sit. Just to recap again, we do have a winter month programme where we have refurbishment and upgrading of the fleet. So just to bear that in mind, year on year, during the winter months, that's when those projects take place. So they may look slightly different the following season, depending on what work needs doing. And again, you can have a look through the image library. You can find that either on the website or via your agent. If you ask, we can arrange to send out some brochures and flyers just to get, so you can get an idea of the difference between these. They are very different. So here's an example. You've got the sun deck, the public space of the Barge Renaissance. You can see there's lots of space there to sit, relax and unwind. And of course, you've got your hot tub as well, spa pool. So we mentioned our crew, just to sort of recap on who's on board with our guests. Qualified captain, a highly trained gourmet chef, a knowledgeable English-speaking tour guide, and he or she will transfer by minibus and escort the passengers on excursions. One or two hostesses, housekeepers to take care of the guests and cabins, serve drinks and meals throughout the week. So just to talk about next how you can cruise with us. So we have classic cruise itinerary where you can book an individual cabin for a twin or double sharing, or a solo cabin, and you share with other passengers on a classic cruise itinerary. We also have what's called private charters, where you book the whole barge for full use for friends and family. As a private charter, we can then become more flexible with the itinerary. We introduce various themed itineraries for that, and that can be anything from family cruises, if you have grandchildren taking their family and grandchildren along, if you have groups of friends wanting to play golf, walking tours we have, cycling groups, you name it. There's lots of scope and choice for themed cruises. So private charters become more of a flexible platform for the barge. Just to reiterate, on a family charter, we offer sort of like an a la carte choice of excursions, and it's dependent on the children's ages. With the child ages on board, there is no limit for a child age for a private charter. However, on a classic independent cabin booking, where you're sharing with other passengers, the age must be 12 or over. So next I'm going to run through a typical day on board. It's usually breakfast in the morning, between sort of 8:30, 9. They do start them slightly earlier for those wishing to have an earlier breakfast. That's sort of the general rule of thumb. Then followed by a few hours of cruising, where you're free to hop off, enjoy a stroll along the many towpaths or ride a bicycle, or of course you can stay on board and watch the world go by. Enjoy al fresco lunch on board, and then there's an afternoon excursion back to the barge then for dinner. Free-flowing wine, spirits and champagne. That's generally a typical day, so a sort of a blended balance, as I said, between the cruising and those excursions as well, and also free time, which is important. We're going to talk about next about our excursions. We like to sort of think of them as slightly different than the average excursion. We like to call them insider experiences. They are very authentic and immersive. We've developed over many, many years hand-picked places. We've created sort of relationships with the local people along our routes, and that would be taking our guests privately to exclusive visits, most often to places off the beaten track, to certain chateaus, wine tasting. We visit artisans, beekeepers, local markets and bakeries. There's a whole world of choice throughout all of our itineraries, and we visit lots of different special off the beaten track, very immersive places. Again, this is just a sample of where we take our guests. Again, unique excursions. It could be falconry up in Scotland. We visit the amazing flower auction in Holland, which is at the start of the cruise season. And we visit, as I said, real exclusive private chateaus and wineries where we'll have lunch there and the wine tasting and have a real interesting and intimate experience because it's just our group. Up next, we're going to look at gourmet dining highlights. So I talked about our highly trained chef on board, and what they create in those galley kitchens are fantastic, as you can see in the images here. Really, really beautifully laid out and really delicious cuisine on board. They use fresh ingredients throughout the cruising week, using classic traditions, French and international cuisine. They also host onboard cooking demonstrations for those who have a keen interest in the barge kitchen. They are invited back to watch and learn. And also guests can enjoy local visits to the market with the chef, help choose to select the ingredients to enjoy back on board. So they can get quite involved as you like, really, with the sort of dining aspect of it and the behind the scenes. They do like to sort of show off their skills. And just to note, we can cater for most dietary needs. So we're going to just show you the pickup and drop off vehicles that we use, and also for our excursions. We have a luxury fleet of these vehicles, the Mercedes vehicles, and they are very, very comfortable. Leather seats, you've got the individual recline control, air conditioning, and we use these for our pickup and drop off points, and as I say, for the excursions. They follow alongside the route of the barge, so each barge will have one of these, or even perhaps two of these, depending on the size of the barge. What we're going to do next is I'll show you, run through the barges and the cruise areas where we cruise. And you can see on the map here, predominantly our barges are focused in and around France. But in fact, we cruise in 9 countries, taking in England, Scotland and Ireland, over sort of towards Italy, where we cruise in and out of Venice as well. So we'll go through the list of sort of the barges in the fleet and where they cruise. And just to point out as well, actually, with the routes that we cruise on, all of the itineraries pass through or near a famous wine or whiskey producing area, whether that's a distillery up in Scotland or a vineyard in Burgundy, for example. So it's a real key focus again for our cruises, for those that are interested. So we'll start off by looking at Burgundy. Now, Burgundy is probably more renowned for its wines, and it's the heartland of hotel barging. Really, it's really kind of where it all kind of began back in the day. At the moment, we have 6 hotel barges cruising in Burgundy. You've got a choice here of first-class barge holding 8 passengers, right the way up to 12-passenger deluxe. So again, there's a choice for all tastes and for everybody. Burgundy pickup and drop-off point is Paris. For charter bookings, we can be more flexible with pickup and drop-off locations. If it's a cabin booking on each of these barges, we have a specific pickup and drop-off point. Up next, down south on the Mediterranean coast, we have the Canal du Midi, probably one of my favourite places, I think, in terms of the weather, the scenery, very Mediterranean. The canals are sort of tree lined. You'll be able to see that through the images here. Very colourful, steeped in history. We have 3 hotel barges cruising this region. Again, from first class up to ultra deluxe, we can carry 8 to 10 passengers on the Midi. Pickup here is either Narbonne or Béziers, and again, the charter bookings, we can be a lot more flexible with those points. So up next, we've got the smallest barge in our fleet. It's Nymphia, and she holds 6 passengers, first-class barge, cruising the Loire Valley. This is one of the more popular regions of France for its chateaux, and the pickup here is Tours. Up next, Gascony and Bordeaux, we have Rosa. Rosa cruises really the quieter end of the Canal du Midi, way over sort of west, captivating rural farmland scenery. Rosa is a first-class barge and holds 8 passengers. And the pickup here is Bordeaux and Toulouse. Alsace and Lorraine. So this is bordering France and Germany. Famous for its fine Alsace wines. It's got those rolling hills. It's a very different type of scenery to those you'll find perhaps in the Midi or in Burgundy. It's got that sort of German feel to it when you see you pass through these sort of storybook villages with the wooden cladded roofs and windows. You've got 2 barges here with a choice, ultra deluxe and deluxe, holding between 8 and 12 passengers. The pickup point here will be Strasbourg. Up next, we've got Champagne, which really does sell itself. It's a very popular cruise region, this. We do a couple of weeks here each season in Champagne before moving across down to Alsace. So Champagne, the pickup point is Paris, and this is Panache again, the deluxe 12 passenger. So the start of the cruise season, we're up in Holland with Panache. Panache and Nouvelle Étoile move, so they're the only 2 barges in our fleet that do move in the season. So they'll start in Holland, they'll do a few weeks down in Champagne, and then they'll finish off in Alsace. So again, you've got the 2 barges here up in Holland, famous for its tulips, its windmills. We visit the flower markets here and the amazing Keukenhof gardens, which you can see just the image here on the left. And again, it's sort of seasonal, so it's March and April time that we cruise here. Very, very popular one again. And the pickup here is for Amsterdam. Now we're going to look at the largest barge boat in our fleet, and this is Italy. We cruise here in and out of Venice. Fantastic cruise route right the way through towards Mantua. This boat in particular is the biggest in the fleet. It takes 20 passengers. It has 2 junior suites on the upper deck. You can see it looks a very different style on the outside to a typical hotel barge. It used to be a passenger boat, which we've sort of taken and changed to sort of have that barge feel. Has the exact same inclusions as being on board a hotel barge. It just looks very different from the outside. This is Bella Vita. It's a first-class barge, and again 20 passengers with a higher ratio of crew actually, because you're talking more passenger numbers, between 6 and 10 crew members here for you. Pickup here is Venice, and just to note for next year we do have the opera departures on selected dates now confirmed. They're bookable as charter only, and more information can be found again via your local agent or contact the website and have a look. We've got England, Scotland and Ireland next, the British Isles. So we've got totally different scenery, medieval castles, Celtic history, perhaps slightly rainier, drizzly weather, depending on the time of year you travel. We've got Magna Carta here in the UK, cruising the Royal River Thames, deluxe hotel barge, 8 passengers. Up in Scotland, we've got Spirit of Scotland, 12 passenger barge, and a Scottish Highlander, which carries 8. Those 2 barges cruise the same route, just in the reverse order, so they pass each other on that cruise route midway through the week. And then across in Ireland, we have the Shannon Princess cruising on the Shannon, River Shannon. This is a deluxe barge with 10 passengers. And the pickup from each of these is London, central London for Magna Carta. We've got Inverness in Scotland, and then, of course, Dublin for Ireland. So that's a run through of the barges in the fleet and the cruising areas. Again, you can find more information. Hopefully, I haven't gone too quickly through that, but there's a lot to take in with 17 barges, but that will give you a good idea as to who cruises where and what type of barges are there in those regions as well. So we're going to have a quick look through cruising with confidence. what's going to happen next in terms of the new world of travel post-COVID, and hopefully as things progress and we move forward, we can start to see a more positive sort of outlook in people traveling. To do that, what we've done is looked at our terms and conditions, and we really want to offer that security and peace of mind during these uncertain times. So for any new bookings made up to December the 31st, 2020, for cruises into next year, 2021, you may reschedule the cruise at any time up to 30 days prior to departure if certain COVID-19 related government regulations apply and likely to prevent travel to the barge. European Waterways is a fully bonded member of ABTA and ABTOT, and again, just to reiterate, please contact your local agent or for further details. So some of the reasons why barge cruise is particularly suited to the new world of travels, really it sort of speaks for itself in terms of what we've just looked at in the size. So we're looking at really small numbers, and I think going forward, the word travel bubble is really coming through. Cruising with the same group, whether that's friends or family, just is that safer way to travel at the moment, and it gives people peace of mind. On average, it's less than 10 passengers for those 6 nights altogether. To highlight those private charters, we're getting a lot more inquiries and bookings for groups, families and friends wanting complete privacy, but also the chance to enhance as well the itinerary. Just to reiterate again, those private excursions, the insider, off the beaten track, exclusive use to those chateaus and wineries that we visit. And again, that sort of space and well-being where you're only a few feet from the shore, where you can hop off, enjoy a bicycle ride, you can stroll the towpath and be sort of away from those crowds. So over the last few months, as we all know, we've gone through some sort of difficult changes, and what we've had to do is just look at how we cruise and keep those safety measures that we have existing in place, but to try and reinforce those and enhance those. Our main priority continues to be the health and safety of you, our passengers, but also the crew and the communities in the places that we visit. So just going to go through and recap the safe cruising procedures. Pre-embarkation, so when guests, before they get on board, there'll be guest questionnaires, and temperature checks will also be required at the pickup point. Guest luggage will be deemed disinfected on arrival and taken to the cabins. Deep cleans will be carried out before every cruise, and regular disinfection of those high-use public areas. Air conditioning, so our barges have been now fitted with the HEPA particle filters, and they've been fitted where you can actually remove and clean those as well. Each cabin has its own individual aircon unit to avoid cross-contamination. Guest hygiene, again, this is a real big thing for us, which we're going to try and make sure it's in place and follow for next year. So guests will be asked to use the hand sanitizer gels at each boarding and at meal times as well. So that's all meal times. Masks and gels will be readily available as well for use as appropriate. So for the food and drink, so all food and drinks will be served by the crew. There'll be personal water bottles, and they will be for the guests. They'll be replenished as well and supplied daily by the crew. All our crew will have and have had regular medical checks. Full training has now been completed and is ongoing, and also on all health procedures. Medical backup, so there'll be English-speaking doctors and medical facilities available at short notice if and when needed. So that brings me to the end of European Waterways cruising presentation. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for taking the time to watch, and we welcome any questions, and we wish you safe travels for the near future. Thank you.
Hi, so I'm Amy from Select Travel Holidays, home of Cruise Select, and thank you for joining us for this presentation. We have here Emma and Julie from European Waterways. Thank you guys for joining us for this Q&A session. We've seen your presentation, which was really just informative, and I think it really shows just how different and unique European waterways are as a product. You know, it's a very different concept, and I must say it's something that I've always quite liked to do. So we've got some questions for just a bit more, you know, detail and information. And now, firstly, I always love food, so you know, there might be some of those questions. So I know you mentioned about you can do charter cruises, for example. So if you as a family or what have you have chartered one of your barge hotels, can guests request particular meals in advance? Is that one of the things that you could, you know, cater for?
Yeah, hi, thank you for joining everyone. So for charter cruises, or actually for any sort of cruising in general, if it's individual cabin bookings, what we would ask for in advance of travel is any dietary requirements. So that would cover any allergies or any special sort of requests like that. So we would always go through that with you, just to make sure that the chef is aware before they get on board, and also just to make sure for shopping and getting all the sort of produce on board in advance. For charters, we can be a lot more sort of bespoke with that. So if, for example, you've got somebody who really likes a certain Scotch whiskey, for example, we would then try and make sure that the inclusive bar that's already on board, it's fully stocked anyway, we'll have that specific whiskey or specific vodka or, you know, alcoholic beverage, and that goes for non-alcoholic drinks as well. So yeah, the answer is yes, we would try and cater for all dietary requirements.
Yeah, well, thank you. Again, with that foodie theme in mind, you mentioned in your presentation that there's usually at least one sort of special meal ashore. Where would it be possible that there could be perhaps like another special meal ashore, or could people have the option to eat ashore by themselves instead of on board? Is there that sort of flexibility?
Hi there, my name's Julie. It's good to see you today, Amy. Yeah, that poses a little bit more of a problem for us. As Emma said, you know, a lot of our business is charters, and we do have a lot more flexibility with those. And we do expect charter business to increase now as people prefer to travel in their bubbles. However, in terms of the itinerary, which includes all our excursions and all our meals, which are carefully planned to fit with where our barges happen to be travelling or needing to moor at any time of day, and there is an awful lot of logistics that goes on behind the scenes to make sure everything works really smoothly. We do have the one meal ashore on most of our cruises, which is usually at a very carefully selected, very top-end restaurant. We don't tend to do it more often, partly because our chefs are all, you know, they're at the top of their game.
Yeah.
And we have done this in the past, distant past, I think, but we were getting the feedback that in fact people preferred the food prepared by the chefs on board because it was top restaurant quality. So it's never been an issue.
Yeah.
It isn't really, our cruises are not really the kind of thing where people jump off and jump on, and then when they're on land, they go and in all sorts of directions. The excursions are arranged and carefully curated for them, and sometimes there is freedom during that time if they want to explore a certain town, for example. But it wouldn't normally extend as far as going to restaurants or having other meals on shore. I mean, if you have a particular charter group who are very keen to visit a particular restaurant that they know about in that region, then please let us know, and we'll see if we can build that in for you.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose also if you want to have that one nice top-end restaurant, I guess you want to keep that as a sort of a highlight, really, rather than to dilute it with another restaurant.
Yeah, it's true. Yes. You know, to be honest, the quality of the catering on board is extremely high, and so the visit to the restaurant isn't really considered to be a change of level in the catering, more of a change of scene, a new experience, also a chance for our chef to have a break once during the week. So and also we do choose these restaurants very carefully, and we've worked with most of them for many years. We have a very good relationship with them, and we know that people are really well looked after there.
Yeah, excellent, thank you. So moving a bit away from food now. Well, I mean, I loved you know, some of the photos of the barges and the cabins, because they really do look like I don't know, like really quite unique, very with its own little character, each of the barges you sort of showed us. It gave us a little bit of a insight into that. So I was just wondering, what sort of story, because I suppose you only go for 6 nights, so you probably, you know, it's relaxed, you probably don't really need your ball gown and all that sort of stuff, but what sort of storage is available in cabins such as wardrobes?
Yeah, so with the barges, they do vary. Of course, across the fleet there is 17 hotel barges. So some are first class barges, which are slightly smaller and compact, right up to those ultra deluxe barges that have suites on board, junior suites, and much more space. Saying that, all of the barges have adequate space for luggage, whether that's wardrobe space, under bed storage, side tables as well next to the beds. So there's always going to be space for luggage and hanging clothes. That's no problem at all.
Okay, excellent. And I know you've just touched on that some of your barges, such as junior suites, and I noticed that you particularly mentioned that in the presentation of Bella Vita. So
yeah,
I guess this might also be a bit similar to what you've just said, whereby, you know, you do have your 3 different sort of categories. So it could be that might answer some of the question. But I was wondering, so where most of your hotel barges have just one category of stateroom on board, or is there like a range of cabin categories? So is like a first class, are they all going to be the same sort of cabin sizes, or is there like a difference really, basically?
Yes, on the first class barges, the cabins do tend to be pretty much the same kind of size on those barges. Then as you move to the deluxe barges, some of those barges do have 2 categories of cabins, some staterooms and a couple of junior suites, which tend to be a little bit larger. But on the fact sheets that you can access via our agent's portal downloads area, it gives you all the dimensions for all the different cabins, so that you can see exactly what you're booking or offering to your client, and where there are several cabins available on a particular barge, you can choose whichever ones they like if they're available.
Okay,
just to add to that as well, with the barges that have the junior suite, so for example, you've got La Bella Vita, which we mentioned, but there's also Scottish Highlander, La Belle Epoque and Impressioniste. They all have the additional sort of slightly larger suite, as well as the standard cabins that would be the same.
Okay, thank you. So what are your most popular itineraries for Brits?
Gosh, that's a difficult
It's
question,
really
isn't
tricky.
it?
Yeah.
I'm not sure that there is one. We have a lot of British clients on all of our cruises, to be perfectly honest, because all our cruises are pretty classic. You know, they're covering areas that that British people, along with other nationalities, want to visit. I think it's really quite an impossible answer to give you.
There's so much scope and choice, and then it also sort of, with all the various regions, then you've also got the themed cruises. So there might be really one a family that really are interested in walking or golf. They're very, very popular. It's just really, you really have to kind of narrow it down to their likes and dislikes, and where they'd like to explore a bit more. There's no one really popular area, I would say, or even a popular barge. They all kind of have their own unique thing that to offer. It really just does depend on the clients.
It does, and also where they're travelling from. For example, if they're putting together a group, it could be family or friends. They could be coming from all sorts of different locations, either from this country or from around the world, and that will definitely be a factor with some of them as to what the you know, how they travel to the barge, how they can access that, and work, you know, as a group to make it work for them.
Excellent, thank you. And so, I mean, given the increased popularity of UK-based holidays we've seen, I know you've got, you know, a couple. You mentioned one of them is Scottish Highlander, and you know, I know you've got. So I think it's a couple in Scotland, and you've got one that does the Shannon. But could you tell us a bit more about the itinerary for the Magna Carta Hotel Barge, and perhaps some examples of excursions, or as you call them, insider experiences for that one, please?
Yeah, do you want me to?
Yeah.
So with Magna Carta cruises between Hampton Court Palace and Henley-on-Thames. And so the cruise itself goes from A to B and back each cruise week, and starting on a Sunday to Saturday. So guests are met at the Stafford Hotel, which is central London. They have afternoon tea, and then they'll be taken to the barge mooring, whichever end of the River Thames it's going to start. So during that cruising week, you know, you're passing through beautiful countryside, whether that's Sussex, Berkshire, Oxfordshire. It's got that real quintessential feel, so real old English pubs, old world pubs, villages and towns along the Thames. They've got lots of opportunity to hop off and cycle. The Thames towpath is fantastic for walking, cycling. The sort of main insider experiences, I would say, you're looking at Windsor Castle, for example, Hampton Court Palace, where they visit King Henry VIII's chapel there. Downton Abbey cruises are very, very popular. We go and visit Highclere Castle, which is a huge cellar. And we have certain selected weeks throughout the cruise season. It doesn't run every week because we can't get tickets. It's not always open to the public. But I've got dates of those I can share with you at a later stage, or you can just give us a call. I'll call and we can talk you through them. They're the kind of main ones. Oxford as well. They take a short drive when they're that sort of side. They go to the Oxford University and all the history attached to the chapels there as well. I think that's pretty much the main sort of key points. Along the way, but with that for Magna Carta, you can always, if it's a charter, tailor that to a themed cruise. So along the Thames, you've got the Downton Abbey themed cruise, you've got a flower cruise. For those interested in gardening, for example, tennis. There's lots of choice, and golf, lots of choice. Magna Carta, really, just to be a bit more individual, a bit more bespoke if you've got a group.
And I would just jump in here and say that I think it comes as a surprise to a lot of people that although we're just 20, 30, 40 miles outside the centre of London, how surprisingly rural this itinerary is. Very beautiful. You know, we've got the towpath alongside at all times, so there's a lot of flexibility for people to jump on and off, stroll along the towpath at any given time, or pick up one of the bikes that's on board and cycle for a while if they'd like to. There's a lot of freedom there.
Yeah, excellent, thank you. I mean, I suppose that particularly caught my interest because, you know, there is Scottish Highlands are like a popular, you know, I know there's some itineraries for other companies that do a lot of that part, or, you know, so actually it's quite unusual to have something along the lines of, you know, doing the Thames. So that's why I particularly wanted to ask that question. So, I mean, I suppose the attraction of the Highlands is pretty much self-evident, really, I think. But yeah, so, you know, like, it's good to actually sort of see offer something completely different, something, you know, that we, I guess, take for granted because it is on our back door, so to speak. So yeah, okay, thank you. And this is probably my last question. I mean, I know you've been very, like I said, you know, you're very thorough in your presentation. You did touch on a lot of the COVID measures on board, and in a way, your barging would be like a natural bubble, particularly if you're chartering it. I suppose you're probably going to be more popular for chartered cruises than your normal ones, perhaps, for the foreseeable. But one of our clients, John, has asked about any extra precautions that have been taken to protect COVID-19 on the excursions at destinations. So we've covered the onboard protocols, and so I just, you know, wanted to ask that question on his behalf.
Yes, of course. Well, that's very important to a lot of people. Essentially, we're keeping on top of legislation in several different countries here with regard to this, and it's constantly changing, as you know. So there's different legislation in Ireland, Scotland, England, as well as France, Italy, and the Netherlands, every region that we cruise in. But everybody that we work with has been, of course, you know, these are businesses who take their responsibilities very seriously indeed, and they're all used to dealing with members of the public on an everyday basis. And so, without exception, you know, we're confident in saying that all of these locations for excursions are implementing all the relevant local legislation promptly, taking every possible security measure that you could imagine. And they stay on top of the changes as well.
Yeah.
Nobody takes this lightly. They realise that, you know, the seriousness of breaching legislation, and of course nobody wants to run the risk of that. So yeah, stringent conditions apply, and we're confident that we're able to continue with those excursions under these circumstances. We've run several cruises at the back end of this year, in fact, in Burgundy, the Canal du Midi, on the Thames, and in Scotland. And they've all been very successful. Everybody's felt very comfortable with the situation and the measures that have been put in place to ensure their safety insofar as possible.
And I mean, I suppose also, you know, you've mentioned about the regions in which you have been operating, and you have actually been able to continue operating. I guess particularly for the UK, but also perhaps for some of the other destinations, especially, you know, like you mentioned Burgundy, you can drive to a lot. You know, have you found any of those sort of, you know, how have people been about traveling from, you know, their front door to your barge? I mean, has that been an issue for anyone, or have, you know, because they want to keep in a bubble, or?
Yes, it's a good question. I think that this year we have noticed a lot more people asking about driving to the barges. Previously, they would have been happy just to jump on a flight. Now that's a little bit less easy to do. And then people are loving the idea that they can actually just get in the car and drive.
Yeah.
And this is possible. You know, people are used to driving around the UK and jumping on a ferry or Eurostar or what have you, and driving down to France. So for UK clients, this is a very feasible option, and it gives a lot of people that extra confidence that they need, or that will make the difference between them taking a holiday or not. And you know, the journey can be fun as well. You know, it adds extra to the holiday. So yeah, so we have had more people inquiring about that, and more clients who have been on our cruises that we operated the end of this year have driven.
Okay, thank you. So I think that's all my questions, and like I said, your presentation was fantastic. It, you know, really went into a lot of detail, but because it's such a different concept, I think, well, personally, I found it really useful. So and inspiring, because you know, you do go to some really beautiful places, and I think the way in which you do it is, you know, I think there's definitely some, you know, something for a lot of people there, really. So thank you. So that's all we've got time for now. So thanks, guys.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you
very
Amy.
much for having us.
That's okay.
And don't hesitate to contact us for any other questions.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining our presentation on luxury barge cruising. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it gave you a really good insight into what to expect on a hotel barge cruise, where you can experience, and if you'd like to book on your own barge cruise holiday, perhaps go barging with your bubble, give us a call on 01234 326 758, or email sales@cruiseselect.co.uk, and we'll be more than happy to help you. Again, thank you for taking the time to watch our presentation, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the Virtual Cruise Festival. Take care.